Welcome to Woking Football Club Boardroom. Don't worry, we're not taking over Douse's Friday catch-up, but we thought as a board it would be good just to do a short video, hopefully a short video, just answering some of the things we've heard fans raise over the last weeks and months, hopefully giving definitive answers where we can. And we have Neil Morrison, who's on the board, and Rosemary Johnson, who's chairman, and I'll be posing the questions and maybe chipping in from time to time. My name's Ian Nicholson and I'm the club chaplain. So I suppose we should just dive in really. So I'm going to start with you, Neil. And the thing we've heard really is, in terms financially, will the club be able to afford the new ground? And also a little bit about the ground share, nervousness about being away for a couple of years.
Sure. Well, as you can imagine, there's a huge amount of work been done on the financial plan over the last few months, and what's actually published as part of the planning application itself is just a very brief summary. So we've done a huge amount of work on looking at revenue streams from the new stadium, looking at our costs, and obviously that's quite difficult actually, trying to work out how much a new stadium that's not yet fully designed is going to cost you to operate. But that said, we've looked at all of those revenue streams, and we've come to the conclusion that National League and indeed at EFL level, we would just about break even without impacting our playing budget. So effectively for the same playing budget. Now that might not sound like a fantastic position, but it's a brilliant position. We think that external investment in terms of the playing budget would become really attractive. And that's something that we're already talking to one or two people about. No one's really interested in putting money into this football club as it stands, because that money would literally be, keeping the loos running, and no one wants to put their money into keeping a decrepit stadium up and running. What they want to do is put money into the football budget, and that's what we think we'll be in. So the stadium alone is not the answer. It's part of the answer. It's a big part of the answer because it makes us, as I say, very attractive to that outward investment. And I'm very confident that we will get further investment to improve the playing budget dramatically once the stadium's built.
As a chaplain, I'm quite pleased that we're going to be improving the praying budget, I think you said.
The events of the last few months have meant that actually looking at ground shares, we've had to look at somewhere where we potentially could play league football. That when we started on this journey, that actually wasn't what we were thinking.
Just finally on that, it's probably worth mentioning that, as I understand, the developer will cover the extra costs while we are away from.
That's right, and again, we've done a lot of work to look at the additional costs that will be incurred, which are primarily to do with the ground share itself, because obviously the agreement will cost us some money, but the biggest issue is loss of revenue. We won't have our own facilities to hire out. There will be reduced space for match day hospitality.
Rosemary, turning to you, in terms of how important is this for the future of the club, and also a little bit, if you could, on there've been rumours about the state of the ground and that sort of thing. So how important is it that this goes ahead?
Well, I think we all know the club's a really old ground, and I think we also know that there have been investigations probably over the last 15 years as to how we could look to develop this ground, what could be done here. And to be honest, I think over the last few years, everyone who knows this club will have seen the patch and repairs that we've been carrying out here. It's getting more and more difficult each year to make sure that we can comply with all the safety requirements, which we do. We completely comply with them. We're having to do that by dropping capacity perhaps for the away end and for other areas of the club. And that of course impacts on the amount of fans we can actually get into the ground. Without a new stadium, the club will go on being in deficit because we don't have ways of raising money on off match day income. The new stadium will give us that. So development now is becoming critical for the club because the expenses of running the club are getting higher and higher every year.
And would you say it's getting harder and harder every year?
It's always getting harder and harder every year. You know as well as I do that each year we have to sit down and we have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Expenses are rising. We're trying our best to make sure it to be a reasonable match day experience for everyone, and we're doing everything we can to maximise what we do at this ground. But there is a limit, a finite limit, and Neil has made the point. It is very difficult to ask people to come in and sponsor the club when they know that that money is going into keeping the ground going rather than giving Douse more money for the team.
Brilliant, thank you. Neil, back to you. Bit of a short one, this, hopefully, but in terms of, there have been rumours that we're going to become a rugby club, or how's a rugby club? What, in terms of the stadium and everything, does rugby figure at all?
Clearly, the council, and we've got to remember that actually, whilst Woking Football Club will be playing at the stadium, not praying at the playing at the stadium.
Speak for yourself.
The stadium is actually owned ultimately by the council. So the council has a long-term interest in the stadium, irrespective of whether there is football played here. So it is a very key requirement of theirs that the stadium is capable of having rugby played here. They're very keen that schools, and as part of the community programme, can hold rugby tournaments here on a full-size rugby pitch. So the stadium is designed, or the pitch is sized for rugby, but all of the facilities, all of the players' facilities and so forth, are not. So, for instance, our changing rooms are EFL compliant, but they're not sized for a rugby club. And I can categorically say that there are no plans to ground share with a rugby club. As I say, the future proofing is that if football weren't played here at a future date, rugby could be played here.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And sticking with you, we've had comments from both ends on this capacity. Probably a lot of comments on why do we need a 9,000 capacity stadium. A few others, bold people, are saying, well, surely we should be going for more if we're ambitious, and why not 15,000? I mean, what's the sort of story about the capacity?
Well, I think a lot of work again has been done on the ambition of the club. Clearly, we only attract just over 2,000 on average for our home league games, but the ambition of the club is EFL. And to answer your question in two parts, we think that playing at EFL League One here is probably the limit of the ambition in terms of this site. To go beyond 9,000 and say as 15 has been mentioned, that's championship, and that's a much bigger call because a championship ground has to be all-seater. It also takes up so much more space, but the issues of playing here, we would seriously need to think about where we would play championship football if it ever came to that. So taking the realistic position, we've said, let's design a stadium for EFL Division 1. We think at that level that we would comfortably average 4,000 plus. And in averaging 4,000 plus, we think we would regularly attract 7, 8 and even 9,000, because we would be playing teams like Coventry and Sunderland and whoever temporarily has dropped out of the Championship. So the reality is that you want a stadium that can deal with those games and the odd cup game. And Salford drew Leeds United the first round of the League Cup, sold out this season. But every home game that you have that is 8,000 as opposed to your average of 4,000 generates something like 75 to 100,000 of additional income. Wow. You only need about 3 of those per season to fundamentally change, move the bar in terms of your profitability. So it's not about filling every week, it's having the capacity to take advantage of the big games that you get.
It's probably worth commenting that even now, playing the National League, we play away at some big stadia, which are nowhere near full, but they have a great atmosphere. I mean, we were at Notts County the other week, which can take 20,000.
And it was a brilliant atmosphere, wasn't it?
Brilliant atmosphere. Fantastic. Wrexham, and I know a lot of clubs are looking to build new stadium, and they all seem to be aiming for about the 9,000 or 10,000 mark. And of course, we only get one shot at this, isn't it? Because it's not something we can really expand once it's done.
Exactly. We will be very bound. I mean, a lot of people have said, can you build a smaller stadium that you could expand? The answer is we could, but as long as we've got the space take. But again, it comes down to the reality: who's going to fund that expansion in the future? What we're trying to do here, we're trying to make sure we use this one-off opportunity to provide a stadium that is future-proof for both this club and the community.
And presumably a football pitch is a football pitch, so you can't make a football pitch much smaller, can you? So
Within very narrow margins.
yeah, exactly. And just finally from yourself, I mean, on this section, there've been a few questions about, obviously concerns about the future of the club and the agreements. I mean, I imagine there's been a huge amount of work gone into getting all the agreements watertight.
Well, I think those who are minded to do so will have gone on the council's website and seen the myriad of agreements that already exist, which are signed to get us this far. There's a huge amount of work going on at the moment on what's principally called the development agreement, which sets out how the three parties, ourselves, Woking Borough Council, and the developer Golddev, will effectively contract once we get planning, if we get planning. That's a lot of work, and there are a lot of other agreements that go on that deal with some side issues around that. So that's and obviously the big issue for us is ensuring that everybody's interests are properly looked after in those agreements. So, for instance, even though the design is at a relatively early stage, because we're only at planning, there's what we call a very detailed stadium specification has been developed, which sets out every single thing that the club and the council, indeed, as the landlord, will expect the developer to provide within a completed and turnkey stadium, and that comes down to, being blunt about it, the tables and the cups and saucers in the hospitality suites, because the fitting out of a stadium is a massive part of its cost.
And we've obviously had our own professional legal advice, as have the council and the developers. So it's been done to great depth.
It takes up a lot of time.
I think a lot of people don't realise the amount of time the whole of my board have put into all of this, bearing in mind that most of the board are working people as well, that we've gone into enormous detail, and Neil in particular has put hours on hours of work into making sure that all the agreements are right for the club.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you. One maybe I'll answer, because I've been quite involved with it. Questions around support from our fan base and so on. And I know initially, even the initial soundings were overwhelmingly positive, but we've really, not only our fan base, but also people in the community, people overseas and so on, just so much positive towards the football club and its need to be sustainable and move forward. And I think we're well on the way to, well, hopefully by the time planning comes, we will have had at least 5,000 expressions of support, and a lot of those are Woking, a lot of the surrounding areas, and probably a few hundred from other nations. So thank you to all the Woking exiles who've taken the time to register as well, but also from schools and community groups and charities
and other football clubs.
And other football clubs, yeah. Some who use the ground in their own way, but just a lot of goodwill towards the club, which I think has been very, very heartening
And very appreciated.
Yes, it has. Rosemary, on to you. Hopefully quite a quick one, but is it true that Loop Road and the Meadow Sports playing area will be used for access and storage? Is there any chance that will happen during this development?
No.
Thank you.
Was that quick enough for you?
That was, yeah.
No.
No, that's and I think that was put to bed a few weeks ago, but I've still met a few people who say, "Oh, I understand that Loop Road's going to be used," and
It's fair to say that 2 years ago there was a letter that said, well, perhaps we could, and that was it. The answer
That's
is
as far
no.
as it went.
And so, looking at old information, as we all know, as things develop, things change.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
It would be madness.
Yeah, absolute
It
madness.
would be madness
Absolute
for
madness.
any developer to think that they could access this site there. Why would you do that when you've got access from the two sides that
With the main road.
flank
Yeah.
the development?
Yeah. Neil, just for you, I mean, in terms of the setup of the scheme and the financing, how much will anything from the taxpayer be going towards this?
No, I think again one of the misconceptions is that the council, is funding the stadium. Two points to make there. I think one is that whilst the council has made £250 million available to the developer, that is not council taxpayers' money. It is money that the any local authority can borrow from central government at very advantageous interest rates and make available to developer. I believe Borough Council does this regularly, and it's a mechanism they use on other developments. So that is not yours and my council tax. The other thing is that the developments are very clear in that any monies that the council has invested in facilitating this development, i.e. buying land and so forth, all of those monies are repaid as part of the documents that are already in place, and indeed will be enshrined also in the development agreement.
So if planning were granted, it's not the next day the council suddenly says to the developers, here's £250 million, go away and spend it. It's it will be, I'm sure, I'm not an expert on these things, but it'll be very tightly controlled and scheduled and everything.
Of course it will, and indeed it's on a drawdown basis, so the developer will need to evidence that he has spent the money and before it can be drawn down.
Brilliant, thank you. Rosemary, another area that's been mentioned quite a bit is the medical centre, which I know the initial consultation, that was a big thing that local people said, what about medical provision? But since then there have been questions around, is it really needed? Will it just transfer patients from one surgery to another? Will it be private? Will it be NHS? Any comments on the medical centre?
Yeah. At the original consultation, one of the biggest concerns of local residents was the lack of availability, really, of GP and surgeries and the shortage of GPs. And certainly the figures show that there is an under-provision of GP surgery in the area. So as part of the development that was incorporated into the development, 2 GP practices have already expressed an interest, one of which has been publicly said that in the paper. And it's fair to say that it will be an increase of service. There won't be people, it won't everyone transferring here and closure of the practice. It will be an increase of service, which will not only provide for new people who move in, but also for people who live here. It's NHS practice. There may be private physio and things like that, which is often what you do get, but it will be GP practices, NHS practices.
Thank you very much. And as well, coming straight back to you in terms of other questions that are in around traffic plans and so on. A new stadium, what will that mean for the club?
Well, I think the first thing is there's been a very detailed traffic survey done of it is as it is now. And what people have to remember is with the new stadium, new development, you lose all the traffic from David Lloyd, you lose all the traffic from the snooker club, you lose all traffic from the gin club. So in terms of initial impact, very little change. And what we will do, which we'll have to do, which at the moment the club doesn't have to do because it's been here for so long, is to actually have traffic plans in place for games as we did for Watford. Now that worked very effectively. We've already been talking to local bus companies about increasing bus services or doubling up on bus services, so already doing some work in that. And every match will have to have a traffic plan attached, and as I've said, currently we don't have to do that. So it will be a benefit to people because we're going to have to get that sorted out.
And obviously that's a standard thing. I mean, all football clubs have to have that sort of thing. I mean, traffic and that sort of thing is something that we have to manage. So, thank you for that answer. And finally, I think, Neil, for this session, affordable housing, I mean, what is the big deal? I mean, I know a new amount was mentioned, 468. You know, why is affordable housing so important for the scheme and for Woking, I suppose?
It is clear that the figures demonstrate that Woking has a massive need for affordable housing. And indeed, Woking also has a massive need to hit government targets for housing generally. Again, one of the major things that came through from the consultation was the affordable housing level. And when the planning was submitted, I think that was around the 19%. One of the 5 blocks on the Kingfield development was affordable, together with all of the accommodation on Egley Road. the developer has decided that the right thing to do is to become policy compliant, even though they're also providing a stadium, and although they're also funding moving David Lloyd, they're now also going to be policy compliant, which means that there's now, I think it's 468 units on the Kingfield development of the 1,048, I think it is, will be affordable. So those will effectively transfer to ownership from a housing association or the like. And that is massive news, because certainly the figures I've heard suggest that there hasn't been a policy compliant planning submission in Woking for several years.
No, that's true. I think I read figures about how to be about 102 new houses, affordable houses provided each year, and it's been a struggle to get anywhere near that. I think last year was something like 10. Coincidentally as well, as luck would have it, in the Times today there was an article about housing and saying that Woking is now the 8th most expensive, least affordable place to live in the country. That's taking average salary and house prices. We're now even less affordable than Guildford, which is something. So, 468 affordable houses, I would imagine, will be a huge step forward, and hopefully it will go to local young people.
Well, there's about 1,500 people active on the housing register at the moment, to just put it into context.
Yeah.
And with all the other issues going on and finances going on, that's not going to be a figure that's ever going to get any lower.
No. Well, brilliant. Thank you for your time. I'm sure fans will have other questions, and maybe we'll do another of these in a few weeks. I don't know if there are enough questions come through. I think the message for fans is to say thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the postcards. Thank you for signing up. Please keep it coming. Everyone counts, and we hopefully will be making a new delivery of postcards and letters in the next week or so. So thank you for your support, and do keep the questions coming. Chat to any of us on a match day, and we'll do our best to answer. And if we don't know the answer, we'll do our best to find out. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.